Hello all, my name is Ranju. I am a lecturer at Yoobee College. I teach the game elective part of the Bachelor of Software Engineering. And today I'm going to show you how one of the method to respawn the environments to create um, an endless runner kind of game. So it'll be the environment elements will be dynamically spawned in as we play the game, and so this is going to be demonstrated in Unity game engine and using the C# language. So I have made an initial setup here. So I have uh, downloaded some assets from Unity Asset Store. It's called Toony Tiny City Demo. It's free. So it comes with a car prefab, which is uh, a simple car model, and there is an environment piece. So I've created a small section of the environment, and what we'll be doing is we are spawning duplicates of this as we play the game. So I've created, using the elements that came with the assets, I've lined them, the road like this, and placed the buildings around it to make a city-like of environment. So this is basically for a prototype. So I'm not going to go really detailed into this. Like you can see a small gap here, but that'll do for creating an environment. And then when we come up with the proper assets, like our own assets, we can change them later. And I've also created a couple of scripts here, one for the player movement and one for the camera to follow the player. So right now when we play the game, the player will move forward like in a endless runner game, but as we will play again to show this, we can move left and right to dodge the obstacles, and yeah, we can go through the level. So the car has a box collider, collision box, and let's say the street also has a box collider. So the scripts that I've added in here is camera follow. So that's the camera that's following the player. So if you go to the scene, where is the camera? Yeah, here is the camera, and that's the script added to it. So what it does is that it reads the um, Z position of the player and then just follows it. It's not gonna follow the x-axis because we don't need that at the moment. And for the player movements, what I've done is I've just took the inputs from the horizontal movement or horizontal axis. So the left and right key, or the A and D key, that's from the inputs from the uh, Unity engine. So if you go to project settings, go to inputs, input manager, that's the horizontal inputs. Yeah, and it reads all these left, right, and A, D keys. So that's what I have here, horizontal movement. And then I am uh, taking that and then multiplying with a speed value and then multiplying with the delta time. And again, I'm getting the forward movement um, from the time, and then just adding that to the adding the forward movement to the current position, and then applying that to the rigid body of the player or of the car. So now what we are really going to do is spawning the environment piece as we uh, dynamically in the game. So let's start that. So what I'm going to do is create an empty game object. So I'm going to call this uh, let's say ground prefab. And I'm going to add a script to it. Um, so I'm going to uh, call the script ground spawner. Okay, let's open that. What is Unity? It should be created in the here. Yep, ground spawner. Yeah. Okay, so this is actually responsible for spawning the ground um, at the start of the game and as we progress through the game. So I'm going to delete these two, right? And then now we need to know what the script need to know what it is spawning, like which part of the set or which part of the environment. So I'm going to create a variable for that. So game object ground tile, and I'm going to expose it to the editor like this, serialized field. Now if you go to Unity, you can obviously um, select that prefab and that has the script added to it, and you can see the variable exposed. I'm going to drag and drop this object into prefab into it. Okay, now let's write code for that. So what I'm going to do is I'll delete this update. I don't think I'll need it. Uh, we'll create a new method for spawning the tile, and we'll call that method whenever we want to spawn it. Spawn like an environment piece, the piece that the prefab that we just hooked up. So um, I'll call this, I'll make it a public method and there's no return, so void. And I'll call the method name spawn tile, right? And what are we going to do is we need to we need a start and end position in the tile. So let's head back to the prefab. So obviously I have a box collider added to it, but I need another one so that when we'll get an idea where the next one is to spawn. So I'll hit add box collider, and I'm gonna place this at the end of this level. So zoom in and I'll expand this, and I'll expand it on the y-axis as well, and I'll move it to the end. Yep, so that should be it. So whenever our car or the player hits this box collider, I'll make we can spawn the next spawn point. And we need one more thing. So what I'll do is I'll right click and create an empty group, and I'll call this spawn location. Okay, I can't spell right. I'm going to reset it, and then I'll move this to the end of this uh, tile. So this is where the I'm going to call this 44 so that it's a round figure, right? So this is where the next tile will be spawned, or the whole environment will be spawned from here. So that's the setup required. So I'm gonna move this to the as this first element of the uh, game object or the prefab. It'll make sense when we start coding, right? So that's it. Now let's go to the script. Right, so we need to write the method. So I'm going to call this for instantiating or spawning a game object. We call instantiate, and then what are we going to instantiate? It's the ground tile. So ground tile, and we need to pass in, oops, not this, no ims. We need to pass in the spawn point. So uh, we can uh, call that in from here. So we just added it here. So that's my prefab street. The spawn location. So that's where we want to spawn it. So we haven't added that in the spawn point, but we'll find that here. So next spawn point, and that's the location of it. So we need to make sure the rotation next. So that's the Cottonian dot identity, which means basically means 0 rotations. So that's the way to instantiate. But what we need to do is we need to save this as a temporary object. So we call game object temp equal to, oh, not this, we need a capital G. Yep. So it created a temporary game object, and it saved into the it created a variable for temporary game object and saved it. Created the instantiated the game object and then saved it here. So now what we'll do next is, so now we need to save this. Oh, this is showing error, so we need to this is actually setting the position. So what we'll do is we'll create a variable for that. So vector 3 um, next spawn point, right. And now what we'll do is, once we have spawned a an environment, we can get this spawn location to spawn to find out where the next spawn point is. So what we'll do is next spawn point equal to temp, which is the previously spawned or instantiated game object, temp dot transform dot get child 1 at dot transform dot position. Yeah, right. So that's it. So now let's go to Unity. So we can see, oh, it's not the first, it's the 0, which means in Unity starts counting just like arrays. It starts counting from 0, 1, 2, 3, like that. So now what we do is, when we start the game, we need to call this tile spawn tile method. So we can call this as many times as we want from the start method, so that when we start, when the game is beginning, there'll be already like quite few of them spawned, or we can see road quite far ahead. So I'm going to call this in a for loop. So for so how many times do we want to call this method? So maybe I'll go for 5 at the moment, and then we'll call the spawn tile method here. Right. So now let's head back into Unity. So the script is loading up, and let's go back. Right. So the ground prefab already has the asset. So now we don't actually need the asset here. So I'm going to delete that, move the car up a little bit. And now when we play, yeah, the ground is already spawned and it's hitting. Okay, I found it, what happened. So let's head into the prefab, select the box collider, and so I think it's this one. If you turn that off, yeah, that's the one. So this one is as acting like as a trigger. So when it hits, we don't want to block the car, but we just need to know that it has something has passed, that passed through that collision box. So I'm gonna make it as trigger, and then let's play. And the ground is spawned, and we can see, we can play, and it goes through the game. Right. So now I'm gonna stop it, and the next thing we need is let's go back to the script. We need to, I'll change it to 2 just for debugging purpose. Save it. Now what we need is, we need another script that lets the ground spawn when we pass this prefab. Oops. Yeah, when we pass here, it need to spawn another a game element or the environment element as we pass through each collision boxes. So what we need is, we'll add a script to this ground. So I'll add a new script called ground tile maybe, and we need to go to the assets, ground tile. Right. So what we need to do here is we need to get the information about the ground spawner script we created. So I'm going to delete these comments, and I'm going to create a variable for that. So if I type ground spawner, I get it's already a class that we created, so that's why it's showing up there. So I'm going to type the variable name as ground spawner itself. Yep. Okay. So we only have the variable information, so it doesn't know which ground spawner it is. So we need to get it from the game. So ground spawner equal to game object dot find object of type ground spawner. So it will find a game object of type we actually don't need this. Find a game object of type ground spawner, and it will fill in. So that way we will get the information about this one, and then we can access the spawn tile. Oops. Yep. So so here also I'm going to delete the update method. I think I deleted one extra curly brackets. Right. So we need to know when we have crossed that collision box in the prefab. Where is the prefab? Yep, it is here. So let's go here, and there's a method that comes with Unity classes. It's called on trigger enter. So what it does is that if something collides with the trigger box, then what we'll do is we'll call that spawn tile method. So it resides in the ground spawner. So ground spawner dot spawn tile. Yeah. So it'll spawn. The method is called once, so it will spawn one uh, uh, element. So let's go to the to Unity and let's try it out. So here I'm gonna play, and then you can see it's spawned here. So I'll switch back to the scene view, and you can see our car is going, and then as it crosses this, yeah, a new element is script. I mean, new environment piece is created, and if you go back to game, you can see it's being created. So we'll add more tiles here. I mean, the for loop will add more tiles at the start of the game. But one thing is we need to delete as we pass through uh, the old one, so we don't need it to be there. So I'm gonna just simple. Let's go back in here. After we let's go to the ground tile, and then after we spawn the tile, we will just destroy the old one. So destroy game object. Nope, game object, and we have an option of adding a time as well. So maybe if I add in 2, it means that it'll be destroyed after 2 seconds. So let's see that in action. It's compiling, and then let's run. So again, I'll go back to the scene view, and you can see this is spawned, and it's the back is the environment that's left behind is destroyed. Awesome. I'll change the for loop to uh, a greater value. Maybe we can expose it to the editor. So uh, serialize field in initial tile count. I'll give a default value of 5. Yep. And then I'll pass it. Oh, initial int. Right. And I'll pass in that variable name, initial tile count. So in the game we can set it here. Yeah, and that's it. So that's how we spawn tiles or spawn the environments dynamically in the game as we play the game. So we can keep the resources minimum as possible as we play the game, and there's only a certain amount of environments in the game, and it'll keep it light. And in the same method you can spawn obstacles in the game, like like I don't know what kind of game you're gonna make, but maybe if this is the basic idea, then you can spawn like a patrol or a pedestrians or like a barricades that's closing this, and if you hit it you can just uh, stop the player movement method, or stop calling this whole um, set of script. So yeah, that's it from me. So you can this is just a basic setup for a endless runner kind of game, and you can take it into any direction, but just some basics on how to get it started. And thanks for watching. Bye.